Hey, welcome back. It's Sarah from Roadworthy. Spring has sprung. This is not the most attractive setting for filming a video, but I don't care. Like, I just wanted to just sit out in the sunshine. Um, yeah, went on a hike this week with my son. We're going on our first real hike in the woods tomorrow. Um, So yeah, I feel like I'm not wearing a coat. I'm not wearing a hat. So, you know, things are looking up. So, what else has been going on this week? So, it's book prize season. Um, every year I say I'm not gonna read, I'm not gonna set myself up to read all of these prize lists. And then people's predictions videos come out and their reaction videos come out and people start posting their reviews and I can't help it. I get sucked in. Um, so I don't have any super concrete plans, but um, a lot of the books for um, the International Booker were available. So I put them all on hold, and of course, they're all coming in all at once. Um, yeah, I put some things on audiobook hold where I could. Um, yeah, I'm getting sucked in. Even though every year I say I'm not going to do it, it happens. So, and then all of my other reading plans get derailed. You know, I guess that's how it goes. So, um, book wise, well, let's see. I have had a ton of good things that I've read this week and super surprising. So last week I talked about Memory of Water by Emmy Itaranta as being like a sci-fi, cli-fi dystopian book that was way more nuanced than straight up sci-fi genre fiction. Um, this week I had a very similar experience. Listened to Revelator by Daryl Gregory. Um, this book I was very surprised to see um, in Goodreads was being listed as horror. Um, and that did not kind of occur to me at all. um, and so as I was looking through Daryl Gregory's other books in Goodreads, um, I was surprised to see Spoonbenders, which is a book of his that I read a couple of years ago that I loved. Was nominated for all these science fiction awards, and I was like, "What? I do not think of that book as being science fiction." So anyway, that's probably a marketing thing. I don't. Anyway, I don't know what that's about, but this, and I listened to this in preparation because Daryl Gregory is on a book tour for this, and I signed up to see him speak about this book. I'm not sure if it's next week or in 2 weeks. Anyway, this book is two timelines, so 1938 and 1948. Um, this is about Stella. Um, And in the 1948 timeline, Stella is a young adult. She works as a bootlegger, she's a distiller. Um, and she is called back home when Maudie, her grandmother, dies. And then we jump into her storyline in 1938 when she is living and growing up with Maudie. Somebody described this book as Flannery O'Connor and Stephen King wrote a book after watching a documentary on Branch Davidians. And I think there's a certain aspect to that that's true. So in Stella's family, the women are revelators, and they can commune with the god in the mountain that lives in a cave on their property. And they commune with the god, share their revelations, and various men in the family write down what they say, um, and um, and also write commentary on what they've said. So to me, a lot of this book was about sort of the power dynamics in this family, of the women being the ones able to commune with the god, but the men writing it down and writing the commentary and sort of controlling what is saved for posterity. And then, of course, writing the commentary. It's their interpretation of what's said. And of course, the women who are actually communing with the god never get to share their thoughts and interpretations of what these things mean. So the action is definitely put into motion because of Maudie's death, because this is at the point in time where the Great Smoky Mountain National Park is being formed. And so all of these farmers are being booted off their land to create the park. And with Maudie's death, that means their farm will also be destroyed and incorporated into the park. And so there's some urgency to have the god in the mountain reveal himself. So that's kind of all I'll say about the plot. But there are tons of twists and turns in this, which again speak a lot to power and religion. Is again all I kept thinking about. And I think probably the most frustrating thing about this book is some of those plot reveals that come later sort of elucidate Stella's behavior and motivations earlier in the book, which at the time that you're reading it is super confusing. And so for example, when Maudie dies, there's another young girl living with Maudie at the farm, Sunny. And Stella feels this sense of responsibility for Sunny, but it's never clear why. It's not clear why. Who is Sunny? Why is she living with Maudie on the farm? And again, what? So it's not very clear until, again, as we get to really almost the very end, who Sunny is, and why Stella, even though she hasn't communicated with Sunny in 10 years, why why Stella feels this obligation towards her. So this was, again, listed as horror, and I'm not sure why, because to me, this was way more about the characters and, again, the dynamics in the family, um, you know, than horror. To me, the horror elements took a very distant backseat. um, so that was surprisingly fantastic. The other thing that was surprisingly fantastic, 5 Decembers by James Kestrel. So thank you to Sarah from Eyes on Indie, who recommended this book in a video that she did in the fall, I want to say, about, recommending books, mystery books or crime books, for the fall. This was great. So what is this book about? This is about Joe McCready. He is a police officer and a former veteran, Army veteran, working at the Honolulu Police Department. And he is tasked with investigating a double homicide. Very quickly, it comes out that the male victim is the nephew of the Navy admiral in charge of Pearl Harbor, and that the young woman who's murdered with him is Japanese. And this occurs in the fall of 1941. So he's investigating this crime, and it comes clear that there's some concern that there's a political element to this. And so Admiral Kimmel asks Joe to follow up on leads that take him to Hong Kong. So he arrives in Hong Kong on December 7th, 1941, when Pearl Harbor is attacked and Hong Kong is also attacked by the Japanese. So he ends up in Japan, or as a prisoner of war, and then again, stuff happens, right? This was so good. Now, I never would have said I was a crime person. I always say I'm not a mystery person, but this was a heck of a lot of fun. Joe is like your strong silent type kind of a guy. He definitely has a code of honor that's not always legal, I guess I would say. So I feel like he's definitely a trope. But Kestrel also throws in this relationship that he has with a woman, Molly. And he's pining for Molly all the time while he's stuck in Japan, which is honestly the part of the book that kind of annoyed me. But I think for Kestrel, it's a vehicle to try and round out his character and make him a little less of a caricature. But I also just loved this crime with these political overtones happening in the midst of the war, and having his life in this investigation completely upended by the war. I thought that was a really interesting twist, and made it, for me, who's not really like a crime reader, a lot more interesting. So this is another one. Like, shockingly, I really liked this. Another book shockingly, I really liked this. This is CQ, A Journey Through American Loneliness by Kristen Radtke. Um, this is described in one of the blurbs on the back as a long form graphic essay on loneliness. And I kind of agree with that. And Lauren Groff is also blurbed on here, and she calls this elegant and devastating. And I kind of agree with that too. Um, this is really Kristen Radtke musing on loneliness, how it is a universal experience, but yet as Americans, it's something we're ashamed of. You know, she talks about sort of tropes we have in pop culture, you know, the rom-com of the lonely single woman who, you know, works too much and has too many cats, you know, and you know, all of her problems are solved when she just, you know, gets a man, you know. Talking about the strong, silent cowboy and this American sense of, you know, we value independence and, you know, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and all of these different things, where we prize being alone, which perhaps contributes to loneliness in America. She talks about obviously cultural things that relate to loneliness, but also uh, she gets into some of her personal things, which to me, you know, she's talking about like doing an online blog essentially when she was a preteen as a way to try and connect to people. And it was so cringy reading it. And I realized, yeah, that shame about loneliness is real. Like it's not something you talk about or confess to. Um, so to see her sort of writing about that and a lot of her friends sharing stories about some of their loneliest moments, they were kind of devastating and but cringy. Um, she talks about she does talk a lot about sort of the history in psychology about loneliness, and you know, uh, yeah, attachment and maternal care and these kinds of things, and being important for the emotional and psychological development of kids. And she goes a lot, just a random aside here, she goes through a lot of Harry Harlow's experiments with rhesus monkeys. He's probably commonly known for these experiments where he separated infant rhesus monkeys from their mothers and put them in a cage with like a wire doll. Here's a picture. Um, you know, with a bottle, you know, to see what would happen to these monkeys. And his experiments go on from there. It's kind of horrific and warning, the abuse, honestly, that these monkeys were subjected to is in here. So be warned. But as a random aside, some of the monkeys that survived Harlow's experiments after he died ended up at the college where I went. And so I spent a summer caring for the animals in our primate labs. Um, and those rhesus monkeys were messed up. Anyway, so that's my little connection with Harry Harlow. But anyway, that's in here. But, um, you know, So I love, this is one of my favorite pictures in the book. Um, they're connected, but they're not really connected. The dad is looking at his phone. I love the kid, staring at the viewer, again, trying to connect. Um, there are tons of little drawings like this that perfectly illustrate what she's talking about. And this is the style. There's not a lot of shading, not a lot of detail. It's very monochromatic, which again I think really highlights that stark loneliness that she's talking about. She also does, I'm trying to find, there's a page, she also talks a lot about myths about loneliness in our culture and reactions to loneliness. So she's got this spread. This is an example of headlines in response to shooting incidents, and the shooter is always sort of described as a loner. You can see that in these blurbs. And Radtke writes, coverage of the shootings, particularly if the shooter is white, quickly assigns disconnection as the cause. This explanation offers some relief. If the shooter is a loner, he is not one of us. We band together after these attacks for comfort, but perhaps also to reinforce our own beliefs that we could never be capable of these things the shooter has done. So she has lots of musings in here about how we try and distance ourselves from loneliness, how we often think that we're the only ones who's alone, but yet she sort of realizes we're all surrounded by other people who are often feeling lonely as well. Just lots of interesting musings in here. Again, I was really stunned at how much was in here and how much I had to think about loneliness. And it got me thinking about booktube. Right, is a booktubers over and over will say one of the things that they really love is the connections that they've made with other people. The comments that they get in videos, and again, over and over, they talk about that connection. And so again, I was like, oh my God, we're a bunch of lonely people. Creating booktube videos is our way to connect and stave off our own feelings of loneliness. So this is, if you're not a graphic person, this might be an interesting one to try, because there's a lot of text in here, but again, the art complements the text. Sometimes in graphic books, the art is more important than the text. This is one where the art definitely enhances the text. So this might be a good place for people to dip their toes into graphic books. So 3 super surprising books this week, which was awesome. What am I reading? The Faraway World by Patricia Engel. This is a short story collection. I really liked her book, Infinite Country, that I want to say was longlisted for the Women's Prize. I'm listening to Brotherless Night by V.V. Ganasthananan. No, I did not say that right. Ganasthananan. Yeah. which is a book that's been longlisted for both the Women's Prize and the Carol Shields Prize. So this is about the Tamil family during the Sri Lankan Civil War. And At Swim Two Boys has been going on for a couple of weeks now. It is slow going. I will talk more about this book, but it's slow going, but that's what I've got going. Like I said, I've got a bunch of stuff coming in from the library that are on all these prize lists. So, I'll be joining in the book prize conversations. Anyway, I hope you are too. So please, if you are reading some books from book prize long lists, please let me know which ones you're liking, so I know to try it. Otherwise, I will check in with you next week, and I'll be able to let you know what kind of bookish trouble I got myself into. All right, see ya.